Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Market Snapshot series. My name is Rufus Kamau, Market Analyst at FX Pesa. So, today we'll be talking about the top market events that are currently moving prices. So, with a major focus on the current rally in gold and the new all time high that was formed yesterday. Then we also talk about the slide on European as well as American stocks. We saw a big sell-off yesterday as well as Friday last week, marking a big sell-off that is really concerning. So we'll be trying to understand that as we progress with today's session. So as always, this is not investment advice. It's not a recommendation to trade. So it's purely an educational session, and I hope we get to learn something today. So let's talk about the top key highlight for the day. And this is an article from Yahoo Finance. I'll be sharing right now. The title, Stock Market Today, the NASDAQ SP 500 slide as tech lags after Trump backs tariff plans. So if you happen to join yesterday's session, we talked about this. We mentioned that since it was a low or we didn't have so much market moving news on the economic calendar, that the focus would be on Trump's presentation to the G7 countries, and of course, his speech with Macron. So clearly, Trump was the major market mover yesterday, and he still has some impact in the markets today. So US stocks sold off into the close on Monday as investors weighed the prospects of Donald Trump's tariff policies and also shifted focus to this week's NVIDIA's earnings. So the Dow Jones Industrial Average was little change on the heels of its worst week since October. The SP 500 fell 0.5%, while the tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite fell 1.2%. Stocks' comeback attempt fizzled after Friday's steep declines, capped a losing week, which was marked by data showing American consumers and businesses are becoming concerned about Trump's tariff plans. During a press conference on Monday, President Donald Trump suggested tariffs on Mexico and Canada would go forward on time and on schedule once a month-long delay is over next week. So meanwhile, NVIDIA is navigating the looming threat of those tariffs. Will be closely watched when the AI chip maker reports its results on Wednesday, the highlight of the earnings week. Eyes are also on big tech's demand for AI and risks from China-based DeepSeek's lower-cost technology. So NVIDIA fell 3%, while Microsoft lost ground after an analyst report that it is pulling back on data center construction. But Apple stock tipped higher after it pledged to spend and invest over $500 billion in the US. So other key events this week include the January report for the PCE, or the Personal Consumption Expenditures Index. That will be on Friday. The PCE index is the Federal Reserve's preferred measure of inflation. Reports on US GDP, the housing market, and the consumer confidence survey are also due in the coming days. So clearly, Trump's comments have had a major impact on the markets, and the main focus on the comments from Trump was basically about the tariffs. So on another article, in this case from Reuters, Trump says he will introduce 25% tariffs on autos, pharmaceuticals, as well as chips. So in summary, Trump says he will reveal more about the 25% autos duty on April 2. Pharma and chip firms may face tariffs above 25%. EU trade chief to meet with US officials on Wednesday, and auto industry faced tariff probe in 2018. Trump passed on duties. So clearly, with Trump promising to resume these tariffs on Canada and Mexico at 25% rate, then that has been quite a worrying trend. And as we saw in the last time when he announced the tariffs, there was a big sell-off in the US equity indices and a very strong rally in gold as well as the dollar index. So that explains what happened yesterday, a similar kind of reaction. So now, with more tariffs going to the auto industry, meaning that companies that are exporting cars to the US will have to pay 25% tariffs, is also a major hit pharma, that is medicines and medical equipment, as well as microchip industry might also be facing 25% tariffs. This has become quite a concern in the market, leading to a big sell-off in US major equity indices. But then investors who are afraid of what might happen next with Trump's policies are instead going for safe haven assets, and that may explain why we are seeing a strong rally in gold. Of course, the dollar index is now expected to recover. So let's look at the economic calendar and try to understand what are the major expectations for the day. So clearly, we had the German final GDP quarter over quarter coming in at negative 0.2% as expected. And then for the rest of the day, I believe the most impactful news will be medium impact. We'll be looking at the S&P Case-Shiller Composite 20 Housing Price Index at 5 p.m. This basically estimates the change in housing prices across the US. So in this case, we expected that housing has increased by 4.4% over the last year. And this is a significant increase compared to the previous reading, where there was an increase of 4.3%. So we'll also be looking at the Richmond Manufacturing Index, which is expected to have slightly improved from -4 to -3, but still in a contraction territory. So outside that, we'll be having to FOMC members speaking, member bar, as well as backing on 7:45 p.m. and 9 p.m. So clearly, we don't have major news updates that we'll be expecting for the day. So we expect technical analysis to reign in the day. And of course, the overblown reactions from yesterday, we could be seeing the market reversing some of those major trends. So fast forward to tomorrow, we'll be looking at the consumer price index from Australia, which is a measure of inflation and is expected to have increased to 2.6% year over year, compared to the previous reading of 2.5%. And of course, as we mentioned yesterday, whenever we see inflation on the rise again, it makes it tougher for central banks to cut rates, and so it basically leads to positive performance in the currency. So larger than expected inflation report for Australia would most likely lead to a strengthened Australian dollar. So we'll also be looking at crude oil inventories later in the afternoon at 6:30 p.m. And in the previous reading, there was an uptick of 4.6 million barrels in the US stocks. So a further increase in crude oil inventories would likely lead to lower prices. So we'll be covering more on tomorrow's snapshot, which happens at the same time, 11 a.m. Of course, that day we'll also be having another snapshot. So plenty of time to cover these items on the economic calendar. So outside of that, there's other news happening in the markets. So if you're looking into stock market ideas and what is the current major trend, one of the things happening in the market is that Silicon Valley is going all in on humanoid robots. Making them a reality might take decades. So imagine spending your weekends free of chores. Forget about the laundry, the dishes, the tidying up. It's all been taken care of. And the one responsible is an amalgamation of motors, wires, and computer chips, or what we call a robot. So that's at least part of the promise of humanoid robotics. And Silicon Valley companies are lining up to get in on the action. So Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Nvidia, Tesla, and now according to Bloomberg, Meta, and Apple are each funding on developing humanoid robot systems that could lead to a world where robots walk among us. So we have seen Tesla's robot being developed over time. So each year is only improving, and hopefully we'll be seeing more robots in action, especially in areas where it matters, that is manufacturing, or what we call dark factories. Remember, in a robot factory, they don't need lighting, so that's why we have the common term robot factories. So you can cover more on this by yourself when you have some time. So I'll be sharing a link in the comment section. Hopefully you'll be able to dig right through it. So on the Forex side, we know that a lot has been happening this morning. The dollar has been regaining some strength. And what we are seeing is the Japanese yen, the euro, and the pound all making some progress or some gains against the dollar. whereas the Australian dollar and New Zealand dollar are taking a back seat. So if you look at the weekly performance, it's only the euro that is performing better than the dollar. All other currencies have been giving back some of the gains they had made earlier, with the Canadian dollar being the weakest. And of course, we talked about this correlation yesterday, where the Canadian dollar tends to be positively correlated with oil. So after the big dump in oil prices last week, especially on Friday, we are also seeing the Canadian dollar taking some hit and losing to the dollar. So Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar in the end have also been giving back some of the gains back to the dollar. So outside of that, I don't think there's any other major news. So for now, we can do some technical analysis and try to understand where prices might be headed next. So kindly give me a sec. So let's go for it. Let's try to understand what happened in the markets yesterday and what should be expected for the day today. So I'll be starting with the dollar index. And as you can see, the dollar index has been on a long-term bearish momentum. So even last week when it attempted to go up, we saw sellers coming in and pushing the markets further back downwards. Then on Friday, some form of stability. Monday, further back downwards before making a recovery in the afternoon. And today, it seems more likely that we could be seeing the dollar index moving further back downwards. So for now, from what we are seeing since the market opened, the dollar index attempted to move higher, but now it's moving further back downwards. So looking at major currency pairs, beginning with the euro dollar, we saw the market making a very strong rally at the beginning of the week. You can see the strong rally Monday, and then erased all the gains. And now today we are seeing attempts to bounce from here and keep pushing higher. So it's more likely that we could be seeing the market going for the previous high. So Monday's high might be our next target. And then for pound USD, it's a similar thing. So we had a strong rally on Monday, market pulled back, and now you can see attempts to move further back downwards being met with strong demand. So notice how the market wiped the liquidity around here. It's more like a stop loss grab. So anyone who had, let's say, stop losses on Monday's low around this area here already wiped, and the market is bouncing immediately, meaning that we're expecting the pound now to continue rallying and moving towards the upper side. So also, if you look at the Australian dollar, a strong rally at Monday open, followed by a big drop. And now we are approaching a critical zone. So I'll be removing all this. Let's look at the critical zone. The critical zone is the previous lows, where the market had found support previously as of last week. And now we are looking at the market potentially retesting here and making a strong bounce. So the idea is that the market could potentially get to this area and then bounce and move towards the upper side. So it's a wait and see kind of scenario. So we'll be patient and see what happens around this area, just as we always do. Remember, trading is patience, so we remain patient and wait to see what happens. So yesterday we identified this particular area here, where the market was basically moving sideways for USD JPY. And then this morning, during the opening of the London session, we have seen the market attempt to break towards the lower side, implying that the JPY could continue strengthening against the dollar. So if this remains as the momentum, then potentially we could be seeing the market retesting yesterday's low, as the yen has been a pretty strong currency in the market. So as for the Nikkei 225 index, our ideas remain the same, that this market has been ranging for a large number of weeks, and the lower trend line is a very nice and interesting area to be looking for buy positions, especially for swing traders. So in this case, we have seen the market attempting to move downwards. Yesterday, we found some support here. Market attempted bouncing. Today, we have seen the market pulling back, and now it's bouncing again. So we already tested the Asian low. So the Asian low was the lowest price that the price got during the Asian session, and now we already have a bounce, which basically implies that the market could potentially be looking to move further upwards. So targets around the Asian high might be very nice for the day. So as for gold, we have seen gold ranging, and it should be somehow very important for any gold trader to try and identify when gold is trading in a range so you don't get caught up in the mix. So for now, it seems like gold has been trading sideways. So for, I would say, the last 5 days, the overall price momentum is sideways, though yesterday we slightly hit a new all-time high. So the small wick that you see here, or the small tail on this candle, was a new all-time high for gold, and immediately we got that new all-time high, we saw prices moving downwards. So now our record high is 29.56. So the market pulled back, attempted to create a new high towards midnight, which was met with a very strong sell-off. Now we are looking at a session low in the New York session, and the market could potentially get back to a support area around 29.21, and perhaps you could be seeing some buying coming from this area. So we'll be observing 29.21 as a potential support area. But of course, we all know that gold could also potentially break. So it's more about observing the area and trying to understand the direction of the flow, whether the buyers will be coming back in or whether there will be a straight up sell-off. So as for Brent oil, we saw the big sell-off happening last week, and then on Monday, which is yesterday, we didn't have much happening. So we saw this as a low volume, and we identified this area and said unless the market breaks out, we will not have any positions. So in this case, we had a breakout here, which eventually yielded into a bullish momentum. And now, from the 1 hour time frame, it seemed like we are looking for short selling positions. But then the market is really struggling with going back to the previous support area. So in this case, if you look at the 4 hour chart, clearly this was a major support area. The market dropped to this area, but somehow couldn't push through and break into new lows. And as a result, we are seeing some form of bullish momentum happening. So with all this in mind, now if we readjust our analysis and try to understand what's happening, it seems like this market is still trapped in some form of flag, and we don't have a major breakout yet. So clearly from yesterday's prices, this is the kind of formation we are looking at. So the market oscillating between these two trend lines. Now we are seeing a very short-term move towards the upper trend line here, but then no major breakout. So if you are a short-term trader, this might be interesting. If you're a long-term trader, then the ideas is to observe whether the market breaks the upper side or whether it breaks the lower side. And then that will give you a long-term projection. So US equity indices have had quite an ending to last week and quite a start to this week, with big sell-offs happening on Thursday, followed by a big sell-off on Friday. Then on Monday, some further big sell-off, and then Tuesday, also some further big sell-off. So main reason this is happening is the worry that investors have on the impact of Trump's tariffs. So the thing is, at first, when there was a sell-off on Thursday, this was the biggest opportunity because you would potentially enjoy the whole move if you held on to your short selling positions. Even better opportunity happened on Friday after the big sell-off. You can see there was quite a big number of pips as the market continued moving down like 2.65%. Then yesterday, an even smaller momentum with about 2% sell-off. Then today in the morning, we have seen the market push again down about 0.69%. So if you all know the law of diminishing returns, we know that the further down the market goes, the higher the likelihood of a reversal and the market starts going up. So the funny thing about the NASDAQ is that whenever we have these sell-offs happening in the market, they are almost always followed by a reversal and the market keeps going up. So from a weekly perspective, you can see this is a market that is usually almost always on a bullish momentum. So over the last, I would say, over the last 2 years, You can notice the number of times we have had 2 consecutive weeks of sell-off on the Nasdaq. So in this case, we had 3, and then 3, and then 3, and then the market reversed. So here we had 4 weeks of sell-off, and then the market reversed. Here we had 4 weeks, and then the market reversed. Here we had 2 weeks, and then the market reversed. Now we're on the course of a second week of a sell-off in the Nasdaq, right after hitting a new all-time high. So usually, we know that there are retirement benefit funds and sovereign wealth funds that are heavily invested in the Nasdaq for the long term. This also includes investment banks, insurance companies, mutual funds, and so on. So whenever you see a big sell-off in the Nasdaq, know that long term, almost everyone in that market is very bullish. So it's a smaller number of participants that cause this volatility, but eventually the weight of the Nasdaq tends to be higher as tech companies are still profitable and they continue creating shareholder value. So as a result of that, we know that these kinds of bearish momentum, in this case, we are looking at the 5th straight day of sell-off in the Nasdaq. We are potentially approaching a buy zone where the market now starts recovering and pushing higher. So if you are to think of this that way, then we know that we are basically on the verge of the market getting into some level of support. And from here, we should be expecting to see some form of bounce and the market pushing further back upwards. So with that in mind, then the overall expectation is at some point we should be seeing imprints of buyers coming right back in and pushing prices higher. So while it might seem that the market is strongly bearish, the idea is that buyers are just about to come back in and push prices higher, and that's where the real opportunity lies. So I know if you're a beginner, you're looking at this and panicking and saying that the market is collapsing or something, but it's normal volatility in the markets. So even when it was dropping this sharply, and this was a few weeks ago, the market eventually made a very strong reversal and eventually broke the previous high and got into a new all-time high. So in this case, this should not worry you. It should scream an opportunity to be looking for bullish positions. So it's the same thing across board. If you look at the Dow Jones, big sell-off has happened, and now it seems like buyers will be coming back. Same thing for the SP 500. This is the daily time frame. So we are looking at the 4th consecutive day of sell-offs, and then potentially the market making a recovery. So we don't know whether it will be happening today or sometimes later. So we continue being patient, waiting to see for the opportunities come up. So it's the same thing for the SP 500, for the Russell 2000. We are just already on the trend line, which implies the likelihood of the market bouncing from here. And also for Bitcoin, which tends to have a much more increased volatility, you can see how fast we are approaching an yearly low. So the last time we saw Bitcoin trading here was on the 15th of November last year. So clearly, notice that anyone who had stops around this area, they've already been wiped out, trying to capture the right price. So after the big sell-off that has happened over this week and this morning, you can see how the market is swiftly responding to that, and potentially we could be seeing buyers capturing this dip. So the lowest we have seen price go today is $88,198, which implies that we could be seeing market bouncing from here and heading much higher. So these dips tend to be the real best opportunities. And of course, from the forward chart, you can see the last time it happened, the market followed it up with a very strong buy, and the market literally recovered very quickly. So as for the dollar trading against the Swiss franc, we expected a rally to this area. That did not play out, and now we are looking at the market moving further back downwards. So in this case, notice the weakness of the dollar and how it's progressively moving lower. But if you go to a shorter time frame, then you'd notice that this market is mainly trading along this particular trend line. And of course, on the lower side, we are looking at this. So it's a market that is literally consolidating, implying that this market is moving sideways. So overall, I would say this market is moving this way. And of course, we'll be on the lookout for a potential breakout towards the lower side, which will imply a short selling position. So we have New Zealand USD also after breaking out and forming a new high. Notice how it has been progressively erasing some of the gains. So now with the dollar pretty strong, we are seeing further erasure of the previous gains. So if you go to a smaller time frame, then we know what this is. So I'll be moving these, extrapolating my trend line here. And now we know that the market could be approaching that level of support. So we have seen it happen several times, market pulling back from here all the way down, and now we are looking at the same thing. So more likely, the New Zealand dollar is headed towards the lower trend line. So if that plays out, then it could mean some good short selling opportunities. And of course, for USD CAD, we finally broke out of this channel. I remember we identified this yesterday, and a strong bounce towards this area played out as expected. So we got a breakout, a retest, and now a potential continuation. So we all know how these things play out from price action analysis. The market breaks out, pulls back to the breakout point, and then makes a continuation move. So the extent of the continuation move is not very direct. So we will be looking at the prior price levels, try to understand where the markets might be headed next. So in this case, a strong break above today's high could more likely lead to a rally towards 1.43422. So as for pound yen, we are seeing a strong bounce along this support area here, which might imply that the pound is moving back higher. And in this case, of course, you have to identify the range, the sideways momentum over the last one day. So in this case, if this is the range, then that implies that we could be seeing the market bouncing and heading towards the previous high. So as for European equity indices, we have seen quite a number of things happening. So for the German stock market index, after the elections, a very strong rally here, followed by big drops happening yesterday in the evening. And now you can see buyers coming right back in. So if you use a smaller time frame, in this case, notice the volume at the market open and the volume we are seeing right now on the current set of candlesticks. So clearly, we are looking at this in a manner suggesting that this was the resistance from yesterday and the market might be about to break. So we could be seeing the market going for Monday's high. That would likely happen if the market pushes further upwards. So for the Spanish 35 IBEX, clearly a very strong momentum as the London market opened. So we have already broken above yesterday's high, which now implies a likely momentum to last week's high. So potentially extending this rally to these areas here. So from on our time frame, this is how it looks like. So a potential pullback met with a very strong support and the market making an instant recovery. And now even for the France 40 stock market index, which had opened with a gap, closed the gap and continued moving higher, it basically implies that the market is finding support. And now we could be looking at the market making a strong bounce from the current prices. So in this case, look at this previous low, this low, and the current low. So attempt to break failed, and now we are seeing the market moving back upwards. So potentially leading to a rally towards this particular trend line. So for the EU 50, also we are seeing a similar kind of price action, a strong bounce from the previous support. So this was the support area here. And of course, now we are looking at potentially the market moving back upwards. And of course, the trend line we have now, given the recent price action, is following this path here. So with this in mind, then the overall expectation is that the bounce now leads to a rally towards the upper trend line here. So I'll be checking on the comment section to see any questions or feedback. So morning, Joyce Moora, and thank you. Shout out to you. You are the first to join and comment. Edmund, Maureen, Paul Carey, Lewis Mutembei, Joseph Wambua, Rono Hilary, Dennis, Yusufu, Anne, Ibzan, and Boniface. Thank you guys for joining and your comments. So a good question here. Hello, which components of the NASDAQ US 30 moves market? Is it Apple, Microsoft, or it's all of them? Comment on how NVIDIA move markets too. So the idea is to understand the weight of each particular company in the NASDAQ as well as SP 500. So I will be showing you this in a second. So let's see if I can find one good resource. So let me share this. Sorry, this is taking a couple of seconds. Somehow my platform is hanging a bit, so let's try and redo it. I wonder why that is happening. Okay, finally it's loading. So this is the Dow Jones heat map. So the Dow Jones 30 index has 30 companies. So each company has its own weight in the index. So the size of each square or rectangle here represents the weight of the company in the index. So clearly, as you can see, there are companies with much bigger weight and other companies with smaller weights. So this means that Apple has the biggest weight, followed by NVIDIA. Microsoft and Amazon also have bigger weights. So this means that in the Dow Jones index, if there's a strong performance by these companies, they're almost contributing, let's say 50% of the performance of the Dow Jones. So if Amazon, NVIDIA, Apple, and Microsoft are doing well, you most likely lead to a strong rally in the Dow Jones. So the weights are very important. You can do some further research on how much weight they each have. And then that will basically guide your decisions. So if you look at the NASDAQ 100 index, also we have the top companies having some big weights. In this case, we have Apple, NVIDIA, Microsoft, Amazon, we have Meta and Google having some huge weight, perhaps over 50% of the weight of the index, meaning that if these companies are performing well, then the NASDAQ is bound to move in the same direction. So I hope that answers your question. So hello, Eric Wanderi, Eastern African, good morning. So a good question. Hello, does that mean after yesterday Trump's speech, dollar can continue falling and the gold spiking? Well, I believe it's the exact opposite for the dollar. So Trump's announcement on tariffs are basically discouraging investments. So for instance, we have seen Warren Buffett increasing his cash position in Berkshire Hathaway, meaning that he's shifting from risk on to risk off. So as a result, the uncertainty around Trump's policies has led to people buying more of the dollar and selling more equities, as we saw being implemented on Friday as well as on Monday. But then these decisions tend to have a short-term impact. The long-term effect is that stocks will always recover. So on the short run, we are seeing a panic selling happening in stocks, but at some point we'll be seeing stocks recovering. So as for gold, as we mentioned earlier in the session, we expect central banks' demand to continue driving the bullish momentum. And of course, the uncertainty brought about by Trump's tariffs is also increasing the momentum in gold. So while we are seeing a pullback happening in gold, the overall expectation is that gold continues in a bullish momentum. So USD JPY, we are long-term bearish. Of course, for today's price action, basically shows a potential for further bearish momentum. So the setup is already there, as we discussed. So a good question today, buying the Nasdaq 100, is it a good idea? So it's not like whether it's a good idea or a bad idea. It's about following price action. And from what we are seeing with price action, it's not showing the best entry point, mainly because we don't have evidence of buyers coming in. So if you look at the UT100, this is a big sell-off. So we will need to see some evidence of buyers coming in. So if you look at all these candlesticks, they are all indicating sellers coming in and pushing prices further back downwards. So the only candlestick we are seeing with some glimpse of buyers coming in is the small green candlestick here on the 15-minute chart, and I don't think this is enough. So we remain patient until we see a clear evidence of buyers coming in. So in previous cycles, when it happened, you notice how it played out. So this was clear evidence of buyers coming in. This was clear evidence of buyers coming in. This was clear evidence of buyers coming in. And so far, we don't have that here. So we remain patient until we have something similar so that it may help build a case for going bullish. A good question from Eric. Do analysis for Solana and of these days. I don't think it's one of the, it's good assets to be considering right now, especially considering what happened with Bybit, what happened with Milei, Argentina's president, what happened with Trump. Those shitcoins are literally dumping and basically eroding trust in the chain and how it's being used and the long-term outlook of the chain. So as a result, we are seeing a big sell-off. So even if you see a small bounce, the long-term outcome will most likely be bearish. So I would rather just focus on Bitcoin itself than what is happening, especially the scamming around. This is a good one. I wonder how I'll be able to understand these graphs, though it's my second day in this course. So kindly go through the Novice to Pro series. It's available on FX Pesa YouTube. I've explained how these candlesticks are formed, these various different levels, support, resistance. We've gone through cycles of impulse and consolidation when markets are really moving and when they are moving sideways. So it's something that I've easily explained all the concepts in the Novice to Pro series. So kindly go through it. It's available on the FX Pesa YouTube channel, and hopefully that will help. What's the minimum amount to start trading? I wonder why you would be asking for a minimum. What is the minimum amount you want to make in the markets? Like, are you looking to invest, let's say, $50, $100, $500, and then what are you really looking for in terms of outcome? So if you're just beginning your trading, the idea is to first get a feel of it and understand the emotions that come through live trading. So if you have $1,000,000 shillings in your savings, start small. Maybe start with $100. So we don't have a minimum at the FX Pesa. You can literally even start with $5, which I would personally highly discourage because most likely you'll lose the money. So the idea is to learn and engage into the process of learning. And once you get the skill, then you'll be asking about the maximum rather than the minimum. USDJPY, we did gain some strength today. This is I don't know how to frame this. I don't know about markets. I don't know whether the markets will go up today or whether markets will go down today. So I cannot give you an answer. I would be lying to you. So the thing is, we try to identify market movements, do our technical analysis, fundamental analysis to identify potential market movements. So we already did this for USDJPY, and we identified a potential move, though it's not huge, where the market is still in this form of consolidation here. So you can see the two trend lines, and the market is just swinging up and down through these two trend lines. And now we had a breakout towards the lower side. Now it seems like the market is getting back in. And when you compare this with what's happening with the dollar index, now strengthening again, that's why I mentioned a strong likelihood that we could be seeing the USDJPY potentially retesting the previous low, which was around 148.839. However, this could not be like a fact of nature. It's more like we know that the market could also retest the previous high that we saw in the Asian session. But for now, given the momentum we are seeing with these candlesticks, it seems more likely that the market will follow the long-term trend of the bearish momentum and eventually potentially get to 148.839. So it's a likelihood, it's more of a probability rather than me telling you this is where the market is headed. Sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong, and that's why we issued a disclaimer at the beginning of the session that this is not investment advice. So I think some of these guys joined late. We always start at 11 a.m. So even the analysis for Euro USD, we can't keep repeating this. We already did this. We mentioned there was a strong rally, a pullback, and now the market is failing to break these levels. So if you go to the 15-minute chart, you look at Friday's low, Monday's low, and Tuesday's low. There is some form of correlation showing that the market is failing to break these lows, which builds a case that the market could potentially bounce from these areas, similar to what it did in the last 2 days. So yesterday, it bounced from here and went to a high of this point. And on Friday, it bounced from here and went to a high of this point, which creates a likely case that the market could also bounce from the same area. So we already covered all this. Let's see what else we missed. What's your opinion on prop firms? Prop firms, we have seen them abuse their rights, especially on client withdrawals. So you have to be very careful on which prop firms you are working with and whether they are regulated. Second, if you cannot make money in your live trading account, you cannot make money in your prop firm trading account. So first focus on the skill, and once you're profitable on your account, then you can make that decision on whether to go the prop firm way or to trade your own account way. Awesome. So I believe it was a pretty good day, good analysis for the day. So we already covered this. So I believe most of this is a repetition. So as always, I'll mention that we do not repeat once we have analyzed these things, mainly because of the videos are live and recorded on YouTube. So you can always go back and rewatch the video in case you missed something. So as for the question on, I believe, what's the highlight here? This is Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, we mentioned that it's more likely to bounce from the current price action level. So after hitting 88,198, this is a pretty cheap level. So a lot of investors tend to buy these dips very quickly. So there is a good chance we'll be seeing Bitcoin making a strong bounce from the current price levels. So that's it for the day. We'll also be making a highlight of some stuff here. One of them being the Bullish Banter podcast. So we have a new episode coming up, so make sure to check it out. So this is the most recent episode where myself and Jesse Ogola talked about the triple threat, Stargate, AGI, Trump tokens, and tariff primers. So we have had several other episodes. For instance, Trump's impact.
Say that will be
Trump's impact in the market, Bitcoin having top trading strategies, and so on. So make sure to check it out and share your feedback. So outside of that, I believe we are good. So if you're just starting trading, check out the Novice to Pro series from the FX Pesa YouTube channel. If you need a trading account, check the links in the description below. Register. If you're just a beginner, start with a demo. If you're an experienced trader, go for a live account. And feel free to share the content of this presentation, whether it's liking, subscribing on the YouTube channel, retweeting, or liking the video on X. This will be much appreciated, and bring in more traders as we discuss these topics every day from Monday to Thursday at exactly 11 a.m. So I appreciate everyone. Hope you have a profitable day.